Alright, so E3 has come and went, and I can say that it was something? Some of the parts I can say I enjoyed, some other parts I did not like at all, and some parts just left me baffled as to why they happened in the first place. I'm not going to get into the argument of whether or not this was the worst E3 ever, but I can definitely say that there were a lot more bad than there was good, at least in the AAA market. There was a lot of really good indie goodiness, but I'm going to be talking about that in a different video right here. Okay, here. Okay, here. Alright. Right here. Anyway, let's get to the breakdown. Let's start things off with Summer Games Fest. That wasn't technically part of E3, but still showed a good number of cool games that I want to talk about. They opened with the new entry into the Borderlands franchise, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which if you've played Borderlands 2, you'll recognize this as the Bunkers and Badasses DLC. Problem is that this is a standalone game, which I am 1000% fine with, as it is my favorite Borderlands DLC, followed closely behind Badass Quitter, Badassitude! Sadly, they didn't go super in-depth on Wonderlands, other than it is not part of the Borderlands storyline, and it will be similar gunplay, but also there will be spellcasting, which sounds awesome. There is Jurassic Park Evolution 2, which has Jeff Goldblum back to voice the character from the Jurassic Park series. They showed a new Battle Royale set in Vampire the Masquerade's universe, which is interesting since the last long-awaited sequel, Vampire the Masquerades, got delayed into oblivion. Evil Dead is getting its own game, and it looks similar to Dead by Daylight in the Friday the 13th games, which seems cool as they even got Bruce Campbell to be the narrator. And after that, we finally got a reveal for Elden Ring and the release date, which I'm sure people are hyped for, as this is the new game from the beloved Dark Souls creators From Software, but it is also written by George R.R. Martin, the man that made a name for himself by ripping off J.R.R. Tolkien's works and adding titties and flaccid dicks. That's right, I said it. Deal with it. Friday, nothing really of interest happened in video game news, though Netflix did announce a slew of new video game related content that are in the works, including Splinter Cell, Cuphead, a Castlevania spin-off, and of course the new look at The Witcher Season 2. Saturday started off light with the Guerrilla Collective and the Wholesome Direct, which were more indie video game geared, which I will talk about more in detail in another video. The E3 showcase finally started with Ubisoft showing a more in-depth look at Far Cry 6, which looks promising. There's a tiny puppy named Chorizo, need I say more? They announced Riders Republic, a new extreme sports game that has some serious SSX Tricky vibes to it. And they also announced a new entry into the Mario plus Rabbids series with Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which if you haven't played the first one and you're a fan of tactics games, I highly recommend you check it out. Even with how silly the concept is, the gameplay itself is rather enjoyable. Sparks of Hope is introducing familiar characters from the Nintendo universe like Rosalina and Luma, and Ganon? Ubisoft's big One More Thing was an Avatar game, though? And not like the last Airbender Avatar, but like the Blue People Dances with Wolves Avatar, which is kind of more confusing than it is cool. Like, who asked for this? We get a Splinter Cell TV show, but no game? Like, really, Ubisoft? Afterwards, we had the Devolver Digital Showcase. If you have never watched any of their showcases, they are just simply fun to watch, even if they don't have any good games. Full of swearing and gore and packed with satirical jabs at the gaming industry as a whole, they are more of an indie game developer, so I will talk more about them in another video, but I recommend watching their showcase, as it is full of hilarious gags and callbacks to the previous shows that they have done for about the last 5 years. After Devolver, Gearbox came out of the box swinging, and by swinging I mean unconscious on the mat within seconds like they tried to box Logan Paul, as they showed almost nothing other than things we've already seen, like the Wonderlands trailer. We got no more information than the previous time we saw it at Summer Games Fest, and a DLC for the critically panned Godfall. Honestly, it was a big waste of time, but at least we didn't have to hear Randy Pitchford sing again.
Talking to a drunk.
The next day was Xbox and Bethesda's showcase, and it was one hell of a show. With their focus on games, they actually brought some games, shocker I know, to back that up. Starting right off with a closer look at Starfall and the release date set for November 11th, 2032 as an Xbox exclusive. They showed Stalker 2, which looks amazing, Back 4 Blood from the makers of Left 4 Dead, which will be on Game Pass Day 1. Outer Worlds 2 was announced with the most sarcastic trailer I've ever seen.
Make everything seem cool and should bolster pre-sale numbers.
Sea of Thieves will be getting a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover, which I never really saw the interest in that game, but this might pull me into it. We also got some gameplay for Battlefield 2042, which looks as hectic as ever, even for Battlefield, but I'm really angry about this one, and I'll explain that one later. Psychonauts 2 release date was announced for August 25th this year, and it will be on Game Pass day one. Atomic Heart and The Ascent, two futuristic shooters, were announced and will also be going on Game Pass day one. We also got a trailer for the Halo Infinite and the new look at the improved graphics, as well as a huge multiplayer announcement that the multiplayer will be launching the same day as the campaign, and it will be free to play, which is a huge fucking deal and one of the most consumer-friendly things we saw announced at the entirety of E3. To close the show, they announced the new IP from Arcane Studios, the makers of the Dishonored series, REDFALL, the new 4-player co-op shooter where you can choose from a group of heroes as they battle extremely powerful vampires. All in all, it was a pretty stellar showcase for Xbox as they really tried to hit the ground running with this new console war, and to be honest, it looks pretty promising for them. After Xbox's showcase, Square Enix had to follow it up, and it was definitely a tough act to follow. They started out with the new Guardians of the Galaxy game, which seems to be a mix of a Telltale-like narrative with a very Mass Effect-styled gameplay. You play as Star-Lord and control the rest of the team through a series of mid-combat commands that allow you to pull off interesting combos and special abilities, and it is coming out relatively soon, October 26th. They followed that with Strangers of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which looks meh at best. The dialogue is silly, with the main guy, whom is in a shirt and jeans, yelling "Chaos" like every 3 seconds, and the gameplay looks rather lackluster. And to top that all off, the demo that they put out for that game was completely broken and wouldn't launch on day one. That's not a great look for an already mediocre looking game. They announced Babylon's Fall, which is another live service game. That's all I really need to say about that. The new Life is Strange True Colors got a gameplay trailer, and it looks really good, though I am a little biased as the first Life is Strange crushed my soul and I loved every second of it. The only other thing of note that they announced is the remastering of 1 through 6 of the Final Fantasy games in pixel art form, which will be only available on mobile and Steam. The next day was Take-Two, Freedom Games, and Capcom, and all three of them were very lackluster to say the least. Take-Two was pretty much a Zoom meeting for their entire showcase with the topic of diversity in the gaming industry. And as much as I agree with their statements and their initiatives, there should be more women and people of color in games and behind them. That's how we get more diverse narratives, and that's how more people can relate to them. This was not the place to do that kind of show. They did preemptively say that they were going to not show video games, but at a video game showcase, it's probably best if you show some fucking video games. Especially if you own some companies as prolific as Rockstar and 2K. People have their expectations really high for E3, and that might be on them, but you have to at least read your audience before you make such a bold showcase as to not show any games whatsoever. Freedom Games is mostly an indie developer, so I will not be talking about them in this video. And as for Capcom, they left much to be desired as they basically only announced 2 games, Monster Hunter Stories 2, a turn-based RPG, and The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. They also announced that they were working on a new DLC for Resident Evil 8, but it was just a text screen pretty much saying, "We're working on it," and that's it. Like most of my sexual encounters, it was over before you knew it, and the only feeling you're left with was disappointment. Nintendo Direct was another big event, starting right off by announcing Kazuya from Tekken will be joining the Smash Bros. Roster. They announced a slew of new remasters from Super Monkey Ball Banana Mania, Advanced Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp, and Mario Party Superstars, which in my opinion could have been DLC for Super Mario Party since the game is pretty lacking in content, but okay. They announced a few new games such as the return of WarioWare, which is adding a new multiplayer option to it, Metroid Dread, a new 2D entry into the franchise where Samus is making her return and is being chased by a seemingly unstoppable robot, hence the name Dread, and a new Shin Megami Tensei, which is a post-apocalyptic monster capture turn-based game, which I've never played these games, but I might since this one looks really awesome. They're also bringing over a Wii U game that never made it over to the States, Fatal Frame Maiden of Blackwater. They also announced a new Zelda Game & Watch handheld console that comes preloaded with The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and Link's Awakening, along with the signature playable clock, and it seems much better than the last one they made, though I'm sure they won't make enough to meet the supply, and people will be posting them online for 4 times the retail value in a matter of days. To close out the show, Nintendo brought out the big guns with Breath of the Wild 2, and the most in-depth look at the new entry of the beloved franchise. Sadly, the game still looks like it isn't coming out anytime soon, as they said that they were aiming for a 2022 release. After Nintendo, Bandai Namco was scheduled next, but if you happened to have gone to the bathroom, you might have missed the showcase as it was only 10 minutes long, and it only showed one trailer for the House of Ashes, a new entry into the Dark Pictures anthology, and that's it. Even though they have plenty of games that they are producing, Elden Ring and Scarlet Nexus to name a few, they only showed one trailer, and that's the end of it. I'm just gonna put this out there. If you don't have enough video or trailers or content in order to put out an E3 show, just don't do one. You don't have to put on a show. And a lot of the times, if you put on a bad one, it does a lot more harm than it does good. So just wait it out and make your announcements and your trailers whenever everything is done, and then it'll be great. Just don't waste people's time with a crappy E3 showcase, because nobody likes that. Anyway, that's my breakdown for E3. Let me know what you guys liked, what you thought was awesome, what you hated, and leave some comments down there. You know, as always, like and subscribe, and make sure to say some nice things. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good day. Peace.